Welcome to the Concession Stand podcast. Today, actually, it's been quite a while since
How long
we've
was it? Like a month or two, probably. I
month
don't know, give or
two,
take. I need
maybe
to check.
if or we've
Actually,
been.
I'll check that right now.
We can check that right now. We've been busy for so long because I've had school
2
and
months.
work 3 months.
2 months.
2 months. It's been 2 months. A lot of news has happened. We're not going to talk about
September
anything
21st. That was the last video.
Jesus.
September 21st.
Oh yeah, because I remember editing the thumbnail at my college.
Yeah.
But welcome. Today on the Concession Stand podcast, we have a couple things to go through. Some decently new news and something that's actually the newest that I saw, if I can find it. Oh, first off, hi, I'm Carter, and this is my co-host.
I'm Jonah. Yeah.
Jonah.
Co-host.
We're co-hosts.
Also, we also have YouTube channels of our own that
link in the description.
I haven't posted in a month, but
and
still
go
check out and subscribe, please, and go check out his channel, subscribe to this as well.
Yeah, go check those out. Come back here or do it after. Either or, I don't care. So, first news we're gonna go through is the Toronto Blue Jays have started talking to the nice man, Don Mattingly, the former.
Don Mattingly.
I believe he is the former coach of the Miami Marlins.
Yeah, he was the manager of the Miami Marlins for like the last 6-7 years, 2016 up until he was let go on mutually agreed to part ways. That's the way it was phrased at the end of this season.
Yes. So an article was posted. I don't know where it was posted.
And he was also the manager of the Dodgers from 2008 to 2015 as well.
True. So, it was New York Post. New York Post Sports posted Don Mattingly in deep talks with Toronto, or to join the Toronto Blue Jays coaching staff. Let's go. I've heard.
I mean, I actually had to do. I was just doing some quick last minute research into his coaching career. So he did spend like a few seasons with the Yankees. Of course, that's the team where he played with for his career.
Yeah.
As like a hitting coach, and they actually did very well hitting in those years. But manager, not really as great. I mean, he was with the Dodgers a long time. They'd often make the postseason, but usually get eliminated early, even despite the teams they had.
Yeah, you want to know why?
Never performed. I mean, it's no different from what they're doing right now. Getting eliminated so early, even though they had almost like some of the highest wins in like a long time. What was it? How many wins did they have this year?
Marlins?
I don't even remember. It was Dodgers.
I have no idea, but I remember
it was like 110 or somewhere close to 110 or even higher than that. But no, they were out. Then he was in the Marlins for like the last 6 years, and I think only once did they even make the postseason, and that was in 2020 COVID shortened season. Toss it out. Doesn't really matter at all. Doesn't really count.
No.
And of course, under his tenure, they lost their first ever playoff series ever. The Marlins.
I saw somewhere that he was going to be the bench coach. Don't quote me on that.
I think I saw the same thing too. Bench coach. Now that's I think a role he's never been in before. So we'll
see how it goes.
I mean, obviously, it might not even happen, but it's a bold choice if they do.
Bold
strategy. He's never really been in that kind of role before anywhere. So but I think, who was the bench coach before anyways? Or did they even have one?
I have no idea. It might have been Schneider, who after Montoya. I don't know. Usually
did they not
after
even have one? Because I was under the impression they actually weren't going to make that many major changes. They're kind of just roll with it.
No, because usually after the manager is ejected, it's like the bench coach takes over. So after like Montoya was kicked out, the bench coach took over or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was just some fun news. Some other things I wanted to bring up was for sure World Cup World Cup of
Oh yeah,
Soccer.
actually, that's gonna be like a lot of this. So maybe we should get into some of the other stuff we were gonna talk about first. That might not take as long
The
as
other
this one's
stuff.
probably gonna be like most of it.
Okay.
We
Leafs are
should probably talk about some
confusing.
of the other stuff
Enough.
first.
Leafs are confusing. Enough said. We've
That's
been
like
through this.
shorter.
That's
Well, I
they
mean, when are they not confusing?
they win without their top four defense, and then they lose with, or they win without their top four defense, and they lose with the top four defense. Don't know what's going on there. And
Yeah,
that's just it's weird. It's weird. It is so weird. I'm trying to find the next thing I want to talk about is Formula One. We don't really talk a lot of Formula One on here, but there was something.
well, I don't really watch Formula One, so
I don't watch it.
yeah.
A lot of the times it is very early in the morning. And I don't like things early in the morning.
And I can only name a few drivers. I don't. Not many.
So Ferrari, who's been in F1 for
Yeah.
many, many years, has their, I believe it's their, what they call the team principal, which is like the manager of the team.
Mm-hmm.
They, the team principal, his name is, I'm gonna butcher this, Mattia Binotto,
Yeah.
something like that, resigned, which is huge because he was, especially last year, a crucial part of one of their top drivers not winning.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been this whole debacle and all these theories about who's going to become their new team principal. And one of the people that keeps getting brought up is Sebastian Vettel.
Didn't he just retire?
He did. That's
and like a couple of weeks ago, I think he didn't even leave the team. That's one of the few people I know.
Yeah.
But I thought he just retired and he left Ferrari a couple seasons ago. I thought.
Yeah. So a couple years ago, after the end of the 2020 season, he left Ferrari for Aston Martin because I remember Aston Martin just turned into Aston Martin.
Yeah.
And he left them just because he wanted something else, and they didn't live up to his expectations. So he just was like, you know what, I've had enough. I've done what I've needed to do. I retired.
He's won like a couple world titles, anyways.
In the early 2010s, he won 4 world championships.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of discussion about who's going to be it. There's a lot of memes about it. But Sebastian Vettel was one of the ones that everyone keeps bringing up because of his IQ around F1.
Yeah, and I guess his association with Ferrari for a long time.
Another thing was Daniel Ricciardo. I don't know if you know him.
I think I've heard of the name before. Isn't he like I think he's Australian.
He's Australian.
I believe. Yeah.
He's the one with the big smiles. His story was he came in racing for Red Bull. Ended up leaving Red Bull because their new driver, who was this year's world champion, Max Verstappen.
Doesn't have Verstappen, isn't he? With
he's with Red Bull.
He's Red Bull, I think. Right?
Came in a couple of years ago and started becoming in F1. There's like the number 1 driver and the number 2 driver, so it's almost like the favorite child.
Yeah.
So Daniel Ricciardo was slowly becoming the number 2 driver. So he ended up leaving Red Bull to go to what was at the time Renault, because he didn't want to become a second driver.
Yeah.
And then he left Renault to go to McLaren because he didn't want to be. He wanted to be in a winning car. And then he didn't win in McLaren. So
what did he move on?
They dropped him as their driver.
So does he have anywhere to go, or is he like not in F1 anymore?
He's back in F1. He joins back with Red Bull, but as their
number 2, then I guess, because
they're number 3.
3, or
so he is a reserve driver. So if
That's only if like Verstappen or whoever the number 2 is get injured. You
Yes.
mean?
So
Or?
if Verstappen or Sergio Perez, which is the number 2,
Yeah.
if they get hurt or if they don't do well, then Daniel Ricciardo comes in. So he's almost like the backup goalie.
Right.
If that makes sense. So he comes in.
So essentially, he wouldn't be able to like. He doesn't actually get to drive at all, and like
he gets to do testing
unless like one of the guys gets injured or they play really, really poorly.
Yeah. So if their season's not up to par, so if they're not winning or they're not getting, because is in F1, there is the front runners, which is your Red Bulls and Mercedes.
Wouldn't Ferrari be in there, or they've not been that great?
Ferrari would be up there. It would be Red Bull for Ferrari or Mercedes. Then there's your midfield, which would be your McLaren, Aston Martin, I don't know, those guys. It would be kind of your midfield, like, come in 5th place to 10th place teams. And then there's your backfield, which is your 10 to 22. Like, you don't get anything.
Yeah.
Which is you usually end the season with 1 to 0 points. Like, it's you're not even in the contention for points. And they usually, if someone doesn't do well in those high top tier teams, then you're not racing for them. So if in practice or testing that they deem that Daniel Ricciardo is faster than whoever, they'll put him in. And I believe that's all I have to say about F1 at this moment.
Yeah.
Now, I think for the big topic of the hour, the day, the next 4 years,
it's kind of been dominating
World Cup of soccer.
Or football, depending on where you live in the world.
We're from Canada.
Or literally anywhere other than like Canada, the United States.
And that's it.
And I think Australia and New Zealand too. Because Australia, they call it soccer in Australia. I know that for a fact.
Yeah. So Team Canada, after however many years it was, a long time.
36 years.
36 years.
Yes, not since 1986.
Makes it to the World Cup.
In case you want to know what happened there, they lost all 3 of their matches and didn't even score a goal.
They made it to the World Cup.
Yeah, as bad as you can be.
Made it to the World Cup after 36 years. They didn't win.
Well, I mean, it's not over yet. They still play one more match on Thursday, so they could possibly win. Not impossible, but even if they do win, they're already eliminated, so they can't move on any further.
So really, there's no point of them playing. But they did get their first goal, and
so I mean, technically, it's an improvement. I mean, they didn't even score a goal, so.
And what I heard,
it's improvement.
Is the next World Cup happening in 2026? Because it's like the Olympics; it's every 4 years.
Yeah.
Next World Cup in 2026 is in North America. So
yeah, it's freeway. So Canada's, United States, and Mexico are all hosting it.
Canada's
and Canada, since all 3 of those countries are already qualified, like automatically, the host nation gets in automatically. So all 3 of them are already in.
So what I'm hearing is that Canada,
and the team should be much better by then.
Yeah.
Like it's young. It's only going to get better.
It's year 1. It's like you're not making it. Like
cool. They've been pretty awful for 30 plus years. They've never even really come close to actually making the World Cup. It's only like in the last 2 or 3 years in which they actually start to get good again.
But do you think? Here's my question. Ooh, sorry, hiccups. Do you think Canada, with the now experience and with the hometown advantage of probably playing in BMO or in Vancouver?
I think it's in both Toronto and Vancouver. Those are the 2 host cities in Canada. So that would be BMO Vancouver and Toronto. I think BC Place and Vancouver.
Do you think that there's an advantage?
Absolutely. I mean, I guess that kind of is the thing with every country. They get a huge boost playing at home.
Except
And
for
also, I think Canada could do way better because not only would they be much stronger, their group, unlike this time, which was very difficult, it's going to be probably pretty easy because not only would they, the way the whole seeding system works, but also there's instead of 32 teams like it's been for the last several World Cups, including this one, it's going up to 48.
Yeah, I saw something on TikTok
So
about
instead,
that.
so instead of having like groups of four, it's only groups of three, and that's likely to help them out. So they'll probably get only like two. They'll be paired up with two other weak teams, and instead of having like 16 teams into the knockout stage, it's actually 32.
Yeah.
So instead of 4 rounds in the knockout stage, it's actually five then.
Yeah, wasn't it 16 groups of 3?
Yeah, I think it was 16 groups of three, and before it was like yeah, it was 8 groups of four. Now it will be 16 groups of three. It's very controversial, but I think a lot of it is to try to give
More
teams
money.
from countries. Obviously, it's more money, obviously, because more teams in it is like more money. But I think it also, at least on the plus side, I guess it actually gives countries, because right now it's heavily biased towards like, especially Europe and to a lesser degree South America, because I mean that's where all the, you know, the only countries that have ever won the World Cup ever have only come from those two continents. But also like you wouldn't have many teams from countries like Africa, for continents like Africa or Asia or North America would get through, but that would like boost them up. So you see a lot more countries from all those continents would be in the World Cup then.
Oh.
So there's pluses, but then there's also like the downsides. I mean, for one thing, it kind of weakens a lot of the group stage, and also it makes it longer. There's more matches.
Yeah.
There's some that's good to it, and there's some that's not so good to it. Not to mention there's all the talk of they're gonna actually host a World Cup every 2 years instead of 4, which I hope does not happen.
Yeah, it's going to be a...
But let's take a look at the current standings of all 8 groups so far. See what I thought was going to happen before and what has happened, at least thus far. I mean, to date, only 2 of the groups are actually finished. I think the group stage wraps up on Friday.
Right.
So let's start Group A. So I think heading into it, you had that's for the hosts, Qatar. I'll get into later about all the controversies around it because there's a lot.
There was a lot.
There's a lot very controversial about it, but I'm just gonna, for now, I'll just say this: Qatar, not good. I don't think anyone ever thought they were gonna advance out. But they were in a group with the Netherlands, very good team. Senegal, who are the champions of Africa,
Yeah.
and Ecuador, no slouch on. They're pretty good too. So Qatar obviously had a very difficult group, and I thought they were gonna finish last. And what a surprise! They finished last. They lost all 3 of their matches and scored just 1 goal.
Well,
They lost the opening
team up
match
with them.
2-0 to Ecuador. That's the first ever time a host nation lost the opening match of the World Cup. Then they ended up losing 3-1 to Senegal, and then again 2-0 to the Netherlands.
Mhm.
So they're all their first host nation to lose all 3 games, and they're only the second host nation to actually not advance out of the group stage. The only other one was South Africa in 2010, but they at least came close to advancing out. Qatar, not even close. Basically, bottom line is, if they weren't hosting the World Cup, they wouldn't even be here.
No.
There's no way.
Not at all.
They wouldn't come close to it. Moving on. So then we have the other group that just finished today, and that was Group B. And you had England, the United States, Wales, and Iran. Now I think what I had predicted. I actually have it on my phone. I did predictions on every group, and for the most part, it's looking not great.
Right.
But at least the first 2 groups, I don't know. In Group A, I thought Ecuador would advance over Senegal, but that was only because Senegal's best player got injured just before it started, so I kind of thought that would really screw them, but they ended up advancing
Right.
over Ecuador along with the Netherlands. But in Group B, I actually got it mostly right there. England, they they're actually a lot like the Toronto Maple Leafs of international soccer, and I really do mean that. The similarities are actually kind of I don't know, they're interesting. They haven't won the World Cup in 56 years. 1966 is the last time and only time they've actually ever won it.
Jesus.
I think it's the only time they've ever won any major international tournament either. They also have like, the sport was invented there and the whole ethos, everything like it is in the country.
Right.
And they also have like a very hypercritical media, sports media of the team, like bashes the players at every opportunity they get. Sound familiar? Yeah. And often when such criticism is not often maybe not entirely reasonable, but I think heading into it there was actually a lot of fair criticism of England because they were not playing well at all, even though they actually absolutely had the talent to make it all the way and win the thing. They were not playing well at all. Like heading into it, like they were losing matches to way lesser opponents in Europe.
Sounds like an
And
England moment.
and their group overall, like, was not entirely easy. But I mean, heading into it still, like the team had so much talent that you would think, hey, like they have to move on. And like in the last World Cup, they made it all the way to semifinals, and in the European Championship last year, they actually made it all the way to the final, only to lose on penalties. Which, by the way, I should point out, it's a thing they do. They lose often on penalties. Actually, a lot of the time,
Like
they always seem to choke whenever it gets there.
3-1 every year. There's
But
always
the
a
group
3 and a 1.
also had the United States. They missed the last World Cup, but they were in like the last several before that.
Yeah.
But like Canada, they're also a young up and coming team. Although actually they're better than Canada. I'll admit that.
Nobody's better than Canada.
Yeah. But there was a lot of questions. Their form also was not great heading into it either. They were losing tons of matches to weaker sides. Their coaching was especially heavily questionable. I mean, so was England's too, but the United States heavily questionable. Really poor tactical decisions, and I should point out that in qualifying, they only advanced to the World Cup on goal difference. Like they came third in the North American qualifiers behind both Canada and Mexico, but yeah, the only on goal difference that they get ahead. Like so, they'd scored more goals than like they can see that kind of goal differences. And third, you had Wales, which if you think Canada hasn't been in the World Cup for a long time, that was for 6 years. Wales hadn't actually been there in 64. That's way longer.
Jesus.
I mean, and this is kind of like you felt it was probably going to happen. I mean, they made the last 2 European Championships, and I think in 2016, the European Championship, they actually made it all the way to semifinals. But I think the main goal was just to get into the World Cup. They did that. Who knows if they would be able to get out of the group stage? Actually, spoiler, they didn't. They didn't really look that good at all. But I mean, I think they were just happy to even be there because again, 64 years. I think a lot of the fans would have to be like 70 or older to actually even remember Wales even being in the World Cup to begin with. And finally, there was Iran, which had a good team and could make a pull a surprise, but I think it's kind of impossible to mention Iran without mentioning what is actually happening there now, because like it's kind of impossible to talk about without mentioning the political context, because basically, long story short, there's a woman in Iran that was killed by religious morality police because
I remember hearing about
yeah,
this.
she wouldn't wear a face covering, and that was like strictly forbidden. Like you have to deeply religious country, and she died in police custody. They claimed it was a heart issue, but it was actually that she was beat up by the police, and that triggered massive protests against the government's very like it's a dictatorship over there, like against that kind of rule, trying to remove the Ayatollah, who is like the supreme leader of Iran, but is also like the top religious leader too.
Yeah.
And and it's still happening. The process never stopped, and it made their way into the tournament. Like I think in the first match, the Iranian players actually refused to sing the anthem, like as like a solidarity thing. But then it also kind of got like a lot. There's tons of political controversy, especially what happened in the lead up to today's matches. Like the United States took on Iran earlier today.
Right.
I saw that, and like there was a lot of controversy because the social media managers, I guess, for the United States soccer team, they had actually
Oh God.
sent out an image of the Iranian flag, but without that emblem in the middle, which is like I think like some kind of symbol of the country,
Yeah.
and like that really angered a lot of people over there. Really did.
Gotta love
They
social
walked
media managers.
they walked it back and apologized, but put in a lot of controversy. Not to mention, I'm not really gonna get into it, but there's been like massive.
There's been so much controversy around this.
I mean, just in general, the whole matchup between the United States and Iran was always meant to be like, there's heaps of political tension for stuff that I'm not going to discuss. It's 40 years of it, and that would take hours to discuss.
So much politics.
Anyways, England topped the group. They actually looked a lot better. They destroyed Iran 6-2, but they were held to a scoreless draw against the United States, even though England had the much better team. And I should point out that England has never actually beaten the United States in the World Cup. They've played them each other 3 times, and the United States is undefeated. So there's that. And the United States just advanced today because they beat Iran 1-0, so that got them the edge, and they're through. And Iran, even though they beat Wales, they lost their 2 matches, which is why they're not in. And Wales, of course, they were not good. Apart from that draw against the United States, they both were crushed by both England and Iran, so they're out.
Yeah.
Only scored 1 goal, but hey, at least it's better than nothing. At least he got a point, unlike Canada so far. What was C? Group C. So that one you had Argentina, Poland, Mexico, and Saudi Arabia.
Right.
So Argentina, Lionel Messi, debatably, arguably the greatest player of all time. Depends on who you ask. If you take a position on that, it gets like super heated.
They're both good.
It's like the same thing with the like LeBron MJ debate in basketball, but
okay, yeah, but there's
but multiply that by the toxicity by 100.
Yeah, but there's one right answer.
And you get the Ronaldo versus Messi debate. But anyways, so Argentina. Messi's never won a World Cup before. That's kind of the only thing that's missing. Like, he's won basically everything you can in the sport except the World Cup. That's the one major thing missing. At 35 years old, this was almost certainly going to be his last tournament. And as for some other teams, Poland, they're in the World Cup again. They were in the last World Cup, but they were really awful. They came dead last. Even though they have arguably the best striker in the world, like best forward, and Robert Lewandowski, who got absolutely robbed. He didn't win the Ballon d'Or, which is like the top individual award
right
in soccer. Even though he was arguably like the best player in the last 2 years, he never won it.
Right.
But he also had never scored a goal in the World Cup, even though, again, he's like one of the best goal scorers of all time. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, you have Mexico, which is often like the best team out in North America, but like a certain other North American team up north, aka the United States, their form was pretty awful heading into World Cup. And also, this is probably the weakest Mexican side in a very long time. They didn't look great. They went winless against both the United States and Canada in qualifying. And then there's Saudi Arabia, which not a good team at all, really, on paper, and they kind of got lucky because Asia's a pretty weak continent when it comes to it, so they kind of got it. And
they beat Argentina.
But yeah, that's what happened. They beat Argentina, and suddenly they were on the ropes, but Argentina bounced back. Messi scored, beating Mexico. And currently, right now, at the moment, it will be decided tomorrow, but at the moment, it's currently Poland at 4 points. They're in first. Argentina is in second on 3 points. Saudi Arabia's on 3 points as well, but Argentina's got a better goal difference. Mexico's dead last with only 1 point. They might actually not even make it out of the group stage, which has not happened since like 1990.
Wow.
So they're most likely out unless like Argentina loses to Poland and they beat Saudi Arabia, which could happen, but probably is not likely. Then there's Group D.
How many groups?
You have France, Denmark, Tunisia, and Australia. France, defending World Cup champions. I mean, if anything, they should have been a heavy favorite to repeat again, but two things were going against them, or actually, honestly, three things were going against them. One, their form was meh, not really that great. They've also been flooded with injuries. A lot of the best players have all been getting injured and won't feature at all at the World Cup. And finally, there's also this curse. How to explain it? So essentially, the team who wins the World Cup, at the last couple tournaments, they actually went on to get knocked out in the group stage.
I've seen that too.
That's what happened with Germany at the last tournament. They won a 2014 World Cup, and then at the 2018 one, they lost their opening match to Mexico. They only beat Sweden on a last gasp goal, and then they got destroyed by South Korea of all teams. That's unpacking. Same thing happened with Spain in 2014. They won the World Cup 4 years before that, but they lost their first two matches and went straight home. It happened to Italy in 2010, and it happened to France themselves in 2002. So, it could very well happen again. But then again, France had a pretty weak group, so one should think that they should pass nonetheless. Denmark was the top opponent, and I actually thought they might be able to finish ahead of France just because of the curse. I mean, they made the semifinals of the European Championship. Right. They're more of a dark horse team. Australia and Tunisia, they're both crap. They're not really good at all. They're kind of just happy to be here, I guess. Australia kind of fluked their way in. They really shouldn't even be there. Yeah. At the moment, France is through. They actually made it to the knockout stage. They broke the curse.
Let's go.
They're at 6 points. Australia is actually in second at 3. Even though they got destroyed by France in the first match, they beat Tunisia. They'll actually go through as long as they don't lose to Denmark and Tunisia doesn't beat France, which that latter thing shouldn't be likely. I mean, if you lose to Australia, in the case of Tunisia, you shouldn't be able to beat France.
No.
Simple as that. Group E had Spain, Germany, Japan, and Costa Rica. That was probably the toughest group of the bunch. I mean, Costa Rica is shit. They only got in, like, they kind of caught fire at the right time in North American qualifiers and only got in on a playoff round against New Zealand.
Right.
They really shouldn't be here, and they got destroyed 7-0 by Spain in their first match. But surprisingly, they are not out. They actually managed to beat Japan, who had pulled off one of the shocks of the tournament, beating Germany earlier on. And it looked like Germany was going to actually be eliminated completely, but they managed to draw off Spain. And at the moment, the current standings is Spain at 4 points, Japan at 3, Costa Rica at 3, but Japan has the edge because, well, they didn't give up 7 goals in one match. So, if you don't give up that many goals, you're obviously going to have an edge. And Germany's only 1. But if anything, Germany probably has the best shot of advancing, because if they can just beat Costa Rica and Spain beats Japan, they're through.
Right.
Not difficult. Group F. Now here's the interesting one. This is the one Canada was in. Group F.
Right.
See that one? They were up against Belgium, Croatia, and Morocco. Now, I thought Canada could actually advance. Now, that obviously kind of seems silly now, given what happened, but let me explain. At least in the case of Belgium, they were very good the last couple of years. Like, I think they finished third at the last World Cup. They had a very talented squad, but let's just say they're old. They're old. They're really old. All their best players are well over 30, and the age has hit a lot of them anyways. Like, they're nowhere as good as they once were.
Right.
for the most part. So I honestly thought they would that even though Belgium was ranked second in the world behind only Brazil, that ranking system's very flawed. But nonetheless, I thought they would actually be vulnerable, especially because their defense was also very old and very slow as well. And if Canada's fast-paced attack could actually exploit that. Croatia, I was actually a lot more worried about because they finished second, and even though they're ranked way lower than Belgium, they've been on fire with their form, beating teams that were probably way better than them.
Right.
And Morocco is actually a team that's been very good this year. I'd honestly think they're better than Canada on paper. And how'd it go? Well, Canada, they lost the first match against Belgium, 1-0. Even though Canada, we've watched the entire match, Canada was the way better team and should have won. But they could not fucking put a goal past the net for their life. They could not score one goal.
The officials messed up there. I saw a lot of that.
I mean, like, they arguably could have had 2 more penalties, but then again, their finishing was so atrocious that it might not have actually made that much of a difference at all.
Yeah.
Like, they got so many chances, but they had, like, I think, like, 22 shots, and Belgium only had, like, 9. But the difference is that only 3 of those 22 shots were even on target, and all 3 of them were saved by the Belgian keeper, who is also, like, the best goalkeeper in the world.
Right.
And Belgium only had 9 shots. 3 of them were on target, and 1 of them did go through the net at just before halftime. So they lost that. Then they played Croatia, and that had started so well at the beginning. Just 67 seconds in, the fastest goal of the tournament, Alphonso Davies scores the first ever goal for Canada at a World Cup. And it looks fine for the next 35 minutes-ish, but Croatia were kind of getting a lot better, and eventually they got a goal. They got the equalizer. They scored again just before halftime, make it 2-1, but still not over. You know, Canada needed to at least get a draw just to stay alive. And considering the fact that Morocco had already beat Belgium, that meant that they'd very likely have to win. Because Morocco had exploited all of Belgium's faults. Like, Belgium's a total fraud. I thought they were frauds, and this whole tournament's kind of confirmed to me that they were frauds. But they took their foot off the gas. They got totally outclassed. That was honestly the game overall against Croatia was really a lesson. Both in, like, Croatia's much better team and much more experienced than Canada is a youthful, inexperienced team. That's kind of, and at this stage in experience, it really bites you.
Yeah.
And overall, the coach of Canada was talking shit before the match, and that really pissed off the Croatian media and their fans, and that kind of just put a massive target on Canada's back. That certainly didn't help, and that's probably why they went ruthless god mode.
Yeah. Part
of the reason, I don't know. Seemed to motivate them, and yeah, so they're out. But it's not over yet, and none of the spots are settled. I think Croatia and Morocco are both hold to 2 spots to advance to the knockout stage on 4 points, but Belgium could still get in if they beat Croatia, but I think that's not happening. Belgium's been so awful. They're complete frauds. I thought they would miss the knockout rounds, but I didn't think they'd be this bad.
Yeah.
But Canada could still play spoiler, because if they beat Morocco, then that kind of could actually, like, they could end up. Actually, they could play spoiler in general, because even if they lose, they could sabotage one of those 2 teams that they lost to.
Yeah.
But if they win, I mean, even if they just go for the win, because they never won. They've never even got a single point in the World Cup before, so I should think they should at least go for the win. At least try to minimize the embarrassment. It's not been good, but I mean, hey, at least they're here and they scored a goal.
Right.
You know, better than 1986. Group G: Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, Cameroon. I think we know who finishes first in that. It's Brazil, and they've already won the group. Or actually, I don't think they won the group yet, but it's very impossible to see them not actually winning it.
Brazil is insane.
6 points. Neymar, the dive master himself, he actually got injured. I thought that whole thing with his knee and it was actually nothing, but it turns out was actually his ankle. It was a pretty bad injury though. He's actually missed the entire group stage, and his stats for a lot of the later on the World Cup's actually pretty questionable.
Yeah.
But then again, they don't even need him because Brazil is without question the favorite
No, 100%.
to win the whole thing, so they don't even necessarily need him. And they kind of
nothing.
proved that. They beat Switzerland last, although they beat Switzerland last minute 1-0, and they beat Serbia by 2 goals. But I think those teams are supposed to play more defensive minded, just to kind of stop Brazil from scoring. Cameroon, they are not good. They're kind of lucky they're even here, although they did actually tie with Serbia, but they're probably going to get totally destroyed by Brazil.
Brazil
Next.
is insane.
Yeah, they're insane. I mean, they always are,
How many
but
groups are
they've kind of been in a drought. They haven't actually won the World Cup in like 20 years. Been a while. They've won it more than anyone else, but not in a while. Kind of like they're like international soccer's Montreal Canadiens, basically. They've won it more than anyone else has by, although at least in Montreal's case, by a considerable margin. Brazil's only by one more World Cup than like Germany and Italy.
What is
Italy's not even here. Brazil's won 6. And or 5 actually. They've won 5. I think this could be their 6th if they win this year.
Right.
I think they're on 5. Germany and Italy's are on 4. Italy's not even in the tournament. They didn't even qualify. I think France and Uruguay are on 2, and England and Spain are on 1. Right. That's how it is. Finally, Group H.
Last group.
Portugal, Uruguay, South Korea, and Ghana. And yeah, Portugal.
Ronaldo carries. That's all I'm saying.
There's a lot's happened with him this year. He actually just got cut by his club, Manchester United. Because why?
Because the coaching. They were.
Let's just start. So like Manchester United, they're crap. They used to be really good, but they didn't even make the Champions League, which is like the top club competition in Europe. And Ronaldo didn't even want to play with them anymore because obviously, if you're not on the world's biggest stage, like what's the point of staying with that club then?
Yeah.
He tried to leave. No one actually would want him, so he was stuck with Manchester United, and he barely even got any playing time at all.
Like imagine benching.
He got benched. I mean, to be fair, he was not. He was getting pretty old anyways, and he's not nowhere near the player he was even like a year ago.
Still benching.
But that was
biggest names in soccer.
But I mean, like arguably the greatest player of all time. Again, depending on who you ask. And also like Messi, he's won essentially everything you can win, except for the World Cup as well. And he's 37 years old, so this is definitely his last.
Yeah.
The way he's been playing, I doubt he'll be around in 2026.
There was actually, I saw reports of Messi going to the MLS.
Mm-hmm. He's going to be like...
He's just
he's
playing on rookie mode.
He's going to play like Wayne Gretzky in the 80s in the NHL.
He's going to turn his settings to rookie mode. That's what he's playing.
Yeah. I think in the week or two before the World Cup, Ronaldo had done an interview fairly controversial. He basically like was hitting out at everyone on his own team, on his club team. Some of it was valid, some of the criticism was definitely valid, some of the criticism was not at all valid. But that's what got him cut from the team. So he's currently a free agent. He's not on any team right now.
Toronto FC.
Who knows? I don't know where he'll go next. There's reports that like some Saudi Arabian club is throwing like $200 million dollars at him, which is not at all surprising.
See, just get him
but
signed?
Who knows if that's actually where he'll go. Uruguay. Let's quickly go over some of the other teams. So, like Uruguay, they've been pretty good, decent. Although it's also at first it was an Asian team, but they also have some. They got old stars, but also have like some exciting youth on the way. They're probably like the third best team in South America behind Brazil and Argentina. But it's a weak group. But then again, I think every team in Group H actually has some kind of personal vendetta against Uruguay, because Portugal, they beat Portugal. They eliminated Portugal in the last World Cup. They eliminated South Korea in the 2010 World Cup, and they also eliminated Ghana, especially that one in 2010 as well. That one was the most controversial because Ghana literally lost on a handball.
Yeah.
So like the Uruguay striker Luis Suarez, who's still with the team, he's still in the world. He's in this World Cup, but back in 2010 he right the death of the game when Ghana was about to score and they would have moved on to the next round. He Luis Suarez actually blocked the ball on the line with his hand, even though he's not a goalkeeper, he's a striker. So he
Right.
got sent off, red carded, penalty to Ghana. They missed the penalty, and the game went to penalties overall. New York ended up winning it. It's it's legal what he did, but it's really, really dirty and really controversial for very obvious
It
reasons.
should be like the rule in the NHL where if a net's knocked off, if it looks like it's going in, then it you know over
When the
top it went
goalkeeper
in.
was off the, I mean, I think the goalkeeper was off the line, and that match really kind of like, and if the ball had went in, they definitely would have lost. When if in it, but if he at least blocked it with his hand, there was a chance it could go advance, and they did manage to end up advancing.
Yeah.
At the moment, Uruguay is in serious trouble. They're only at 1 point. They drew with South Korea in the opening match, and they lost to Portugal 2-0, and Portugal's already through. They've already advanced.
Portugal is just uneasy.
They're gonna. I think they'd rather win because if they because whoever finishes second is gonna be playing almost certainly playing Brazil in round of 16. So I think all of them would want to avoid that. But at the moment, it's actually Ghana that's in the position so far. They're on 3 points. South Korea's only on one, and Uruguay's on one as well. But actually, the thing is that Uruguay's World Cup hopes are going to come down to the same team that they eliminated in very controversial fashion back in 2010.
Let's go.
There's going to be a lot of bad blood. Let's just say that it'll
Handball.
come down to that. And overall, who do I think is going to win the World Cup? Brazil.
Probably.
I mean, so far, most of the other favorites that they've had serious problems.
No what?
They have serious problems, especially Argentina and if anything, France are probably the second one. But they're just so battered with injuries right now that and their group is so weak. But once they actually start playing like opponents near their level, I think they're gonna probably start to struggle with all the injuries.
I think that I
And
don't
and
care for
Neymar's
this
probably
year.
gonna
Next year Canada's winning it.
yeah, and Neymar's gonna be back soon, so Brazil should be in much better shape.
Yeah, they should be
Um,
cracked out.
they should win unless they choke. I mean, they've choked the last couple World Cups, but I don't think they will this time. Team's just too good.
Switching it right back to hockey. This is the last thing I want to talk
All
about
right.
before we end it, because it is breaking news from TSN.
Whoa, what happened?
Per reporter Chris, and I quote: Gary Bettman spoke to the Tempe City Council meeting, or at the Tempe City Council meeting, sharing that the Arizona Coyotes are opening to signing a 30-year non-relocation agreement. Per reporter Chris on Twitter.
In Tempe, Arizona.
Yep.
All right, so they'll be staying there. So they're staying at the state then.
The
If
Coyotes are open to signing a 30-year,
being new,
30 years non-relocation agreement.
no, so that's not like a new state, new re-everything. That's
No,
just
no,
like
no.
a guarantee that they cannot leave for
They
the
are
next
not
30 years. You mean?
allowed to be relocated in 30 years.
Has that officially happened yet, or
They
no? Or is that
haven't
just a rumor?
signed it. There's been no official agreement.
So no, Bettman's been doing literally everything to try to keep them in.
Bettman's
You know,
baby boys
like make
are
them
just
play in a
stirring
in the
up.
college arena, like 5,000
They
people.
would rather them sit in a college
It's just
arena.
because he's got so much of an ego, and that was his big project in like the 1990s was by like relocating a lot of the teams in Canada or the northern USA down into the south to try to expand the market there when there really wasn't really any NHL teams there. You know, like moving the Jets and Nordiques,
But
moving like the North Stars and Oilers down as well.
here's the certain things work. The Dallas
And some of
Stars
them worked. I mean, like the Car Avalanche worked, Dallas Stars worked, Carolina Hurricanes worked.
but Arizona
The Predators have had some problems, but they seem to be doing pretty fine right now.
20 whatever 17 it was, they had a good year. They got to
Mhm.
the playoffs.
And the one
went
that
to the
stuck
finals.
out is obviously the Coyotes. They've never been good. That's honestly never has been that much of a market for the sport, I think, in Arizona to begin with.
The only good thing that I like
The
about the
ten's been
Arizona
horrible,
Coyotes,
and again, like the teams their teams have never been good. I don't know what their best season ever was, but they haven't been in the playoffs in like over a decade, and I don't even think when they were there, I don't think they're even that good.
no, The only thing I like
Didn't
about
make him far.
the Coyotes is their jerseys.
And Austin Matthews too.
No.
If they didn't exist, at least wouldn't have gotten Austin Matthews because he wouldn't have been playing hockey.
There's one good thing about Arizona.
He's from Arizona, and
it's
he
Austin
wouldn't have been
Matthews.
playing it because he was a big Coyotes fan. I know everyone says, "Oh, he's gonna move there," but no, he's not.
No.
Or at the very least, I seriously doubt, because why would he ever want to play on such a garbage team like that? That's obviously going nowhere, and if anything, could be relocated soon. I know he won't relocate, but if he doesn't want to relocate anywhere, I'm sure Houston, that's the most logical. If he wants to keep it in the South, he can just move it to Houston. Because it feels like they should have an NHL team, but then they don't.
Houston's weird, but then that's also.
But that seems like the most logical place to move it. If you want to, if you just want, because Texas only has just that one team, and when they have like multiple teams in other leagues,
which is such a weird thing for just Texas.
Mm-hmm.
It's Texas and Florida, and LA, California.
Mm-hmm.
All have like multiple teams.
And like the other sports leagues, but in NHL, Texas has just one.
Yeah, which is weird. Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. It's been about an hour, 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for listening, watching. Go soccer.
I didn't really get to talk much about the World Cup controversy thing, but I think I'll get to that in another podcast.
That can be in our next one, because
I'll be giving the next one.
A bunch. I think that we should have an entire. I did not say Alexa. Why did my Alexa pop off? I think we should have an entire video or an entire podcast of just World Cup controversies.
Yeah, they should.
All right.
Oh, that's for another week.
That's for another.
Thank you all so much for watching.
Subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe to this. Also subscribe to our individual YouTubes. Mine might not be dead for that much longer. I'm just saying. I know I haven't uploaded in like a month, but I've got a video coming out either tomorrow or on Thursday. Comment who you think is going to win the World Cup. Got a couple more videos coming in, and yeah, I mean, honestly, it's gotta be Brazil. Unless Argentina, unless they can actually start proving to me that they're serious. I mean, they could possibly win it, but I don't know. That loss to Saudi Arabia. I forget. Really question me. I forget who's in the winners. Hold on, I can say my pick in like 3 seconds. I think Brazil will win it though, and they're most likely to. They've always been the favorite. You know what? I'm going out here, and I don't even know who's made it or not. No, here I'm gonna say England. I'm gonna say they're finally gonna win it. I have them making the final, only to lose to Argentina. But I'm saying that England's gonna win it. If not, then actually, I think they'll make it to the final, but this time I think they'll lose to Brazil instead of swap out Brazil for Argentina. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Subscribe, like the video, check out our channels in the description, and one last thing, Jonah, before we have to wrap it up. Subscribe to Fragging Gaming. Subscribe to Chicken Tindy Gaming. Comment who you think's gonna win the World Cup. I'm very tired. It's gotta be Brazil, or if not, I guess England probably. If not, they're probably second. Well, thank you, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Bye.